I had to overcome my fear of public speaking. I would get sick. I still felt nervous before going on stage, but it was manageable. It was so little that actually I could be present. I was no longer in fight or flight. I could feel sensations in my body that you would call nerves, but they wouldn't be an obstacle to me excelling in that moment.
Welcome to Camera Confident. I'm your host, Shirlee Engel, former TV correspondent turned entrepreneur. Tune in to master what to say, how to say it, and how to create buzz for your brand. Whether you're hitting record for the first time or trying to land major media opportunities, I've got you covered. Get ready to crush it on video or stage, attract more clients, and bring in more money so you can run your business and live your life your way. I am so excited to talk to you, Diana Sofia. Welcome to the Camera Confident podcast.
My pleasure. I'm so excited to be here and just so excited about the topic that we're going to talk about because it's just near and dear to my heart and it's just my jam.
I can't wait to get to it. So before we get started, why don't you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what's your superpower?
My superpower is basically getting entrepreneurs, specifically that have to show up online and offline to sell their services, do pitching, do public speaking, whatever that is facing forward, getting them super calm and collected and at ease with doing all those things. So you feel that hesitation, you feel the self-doubt, you feel the fear. And a lot of people say oh yeah, feel all those things and do it anyways. And 100%, I am pro all of that. So my job is basically to clear all of that out so they can take action with ease and more calm and collected, and they can actually find joy and motivation and inspiration in their everyday life as they are building their business. So that's what I do.
Sounds so easy, right? It's not that simple. I would
not,
love
but,
to unpack all of that. So, this podcast is called Camera Confident, and we talk about a lot more than just confidence. But what I hear when you describe that is this isn't just about not feeling confident enough about showing up on camera or being seen. This is a lot more deep-seated than that. So can you just give us an idea of some of the situations you see that cause people to feel that fear of pressing record?
So you probably experience this as well. There is definitely kind of like a learning curve for everyone, also just feeling more confident. The more you do it, the more at ease you feel with it. Then there is people where no matter how much they repeat the action, they still feel so stressed in their bodies, so nervous, so in self-doubt, in all these different ideas I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know what are my friends gonna think and all that stuff, right? Instead of working with just basically shifting people's perspective on it's let's just shift your mindset about this. I get into rewiring the subconscious mind with hypnosis and EFT tapping and rapid resolution therapy and many other methodologies so that the way that our brain is engaging with all of these activities, feels more natural. So you were saying, that sounds so easy, right? And basically what happens is that a lot of times why we're feeling all that self-doubt, all that fear, all that dread, overwhelm, whatever it is because the mind is reading this activity as a threat. Why? Because we have not done it enough, So anything that is new for the mind is going to be taken as a possibility for death. So the reason why people sometimes feel literally oh my God, I feel like I need to do some sort of public speaking engagement and I feel like I'm going to puke, is because literally the fight or flight response has been activated, the stress response has been activated, right? So they don't want to feel like that, but it's just being automated by the body because it's a protection mechanism.
Why does that there's a lion that I have to run away from?
Exactly.
And it's that same physiological response that you can feel in the body that literally takes over your mind. Because a lot of entrepreneurs I speak to are very capable, very passionate, very smart. They know exactly what they want to say, but and they can say it on a stage. They can say it to a group of people, but the second you put them in front of a camera, they just freeze. So what's going on there? that causes that to happen?
One aspect of it obviously is that, like what I was saying, you do that thing that makes you scared, and you do it and do it and do it, and then the mind's like at some point gets it. It's like, oh, okay, you did the thing that I was reading as a threat, so I was sending fear, right? But you're still alive. And then you do that 10 times and the mind's like, oh, okay, you're still alive. You're doing this thing, that it's like new and you're still alive. So it must be fine. So then it almost like classifies that thing in the mind at a mind and body level as, oh, this is safe. I'm not going to die from this. So the reason it takes over is because if there's no familiarity with it, and if on top of it, there is any type of past event where that person has felt rejected, ridiculed, like humiliated, like made fun of. I don't know, they were reading in front of the class and like the whole classroom just like laughed, or they were called out by a teacher, or like, there was some sort of like sense of rejection at any point in time between, I don't know, like early years from 0 to 7, and also in teenage years, or actually sometimes even a little later in life, like there can be a rejection felt, let's just say in a relationship, right? Or in a, like where like the boy didn't, didn't like me. The boy that I like didn't like me. And that like moment, what it creates at a mind level, is almost like it starts this pattern, if anything feels familiar to this event, where I could basically feel the same thing, the same pain of rejection again, then the mind will literally send all that fear and nerves and all those body sensations, the shakiness, the sweats, like anything that you feel, like the tension in the neck, whatever is as a physiological response is happening in your body, the mind is sending that basically to get you to stop engaging in that thing that could end up like it ended up in the past. It's almost like the body just takes over. They feel confident in a lot of different situations, but the moment they put a camera in front of them, it's kind of like, freeze response, And the reason that is happening is literally there's not enough like data points for the mind to just classify that as safe.
And all of those experiences you're describing, things from your childhood, things that have happened, that creates limiting beliefs, right? How do you deal with that? How do you overcome these blocks and not let them consume you?
So I'm going to tell you a little story to answer this question. I literally was the person that was in my head thinking about like, what are people going to think about me? And let me fix all the things and let me put the perfect light. And it was just like everything in business and like showing up became an ordeal because of all the limiting beliefs and negative mind chatter I had about how I was going to look, what people were going to think, what if I mess it up, what if someone calls me out, what if I make a mistake and somebody notices, and also English is my second language. So when I started this business in English after having a business in Spanish, it was a big deal for me. It's like, what if I make grammar mistakes? What if nobody understands me? Like nobody cares, it's like I don't get anyone engaging with me and my content. People can relate to that constant like mind chatter of self-doubt, of fear, of like nobody cares, and all this constant mind chatter. Basically,
the inner critic, right? Like we all have this voice in our head that's always trying to cut us down, right?
Yeah. So like basically where that comes from is the same as the emotions. So the mind sends all these thoughts to prevent us from doing the thing that it thinks is gonna like make us dead. Basically, that it's gonna literally just like kill us. And then that question you asked, like how do I overcome it? First, like I take whatever is happening at a body mind level when you're wanting to do that thing that is going to be good for your business. In this case is recording videos on camera, right? Like for whatever medium that you want to put it out there.
Is that like a journaling exercise, or is that like, how do you actually go about assessing that when you're in it?
You're going to start noticing, in the moment where you want to do the thing, and just that you want to feel more at ease with. What is happening in your head? What are you thinking and what are you feeling? And what is happening in your body, right? And then write it down. So in our one-on-one sessions, like obviously I dig on like what are the thoughts that are coming up and what are the emotions that are coming up. What was the one event or multiple events that started this and are supporting these limiting beliefs and reactions in your body, so then from that space, basically I prompt the mind, the subconscious mind, to find as many events, like 1 to 3 events where this happened, and we go back and like reprocess those events. And it's literally, I mean, I have done this in as little time as like 20 minutes with people or like 30 minutes with people. And then the thing is that the brain has a generalization mechanism. So you don't have to find every single event that ever happened, because it can be like literally hundreds. Because it's like,
I wouldn't remember anyway, right?
Exactly. Some people don't remember, right? So basically you search for like 1 or 2, like 1 to 3, and then you reprocess them. You give the old version of you, like either tools or words of affirmation, or like something that they needed to know in that moment to experience this differently. And then you bring them into the present moment to show them that they're no longer stuck there in the past. What happens is that when we experience those type of situations, it's almost like the mind has a mechanism of like storing like and blowing up and making bigger those negative experiences. And because of that, it's almost like a little part of your mind is still stuck there thinking that is happening. And the moment it like something in your environment looks kind of similar or feels like similar to that event in the past, it will send all these rush of emotions, sensations in the body and thoughts, so that you stop doing the thing, because it's like, this looks just like that time where the teacher did this or told us that. And here's the thing, when we engage in fight, flight, or freeze response, basically the stress response, what's happening is that the body is going into like, let's like make us survive, right? So it's rushing blood and energy to the legs, so we can run, or like whatever, we can do whatever to like save ourselves. But the thing is that the other thing that happens is all our higher faculties, so creativity, flow, intuition, problem solving abilities, critical thinking, focus, concentration, everything else goes out of the window, because you don't need any of those things to go run from the lion that you were seeing, you just need your legs to be super strong, and just get out of there, right? So then all our higher faculties are gone, or we have way less access to them. And then basically that's what happens, like you're in front of a camera and you don't even remember what you wanted to say.
What you were going to say.
Because everything is just gone. Like all the things that would make you excel in that moment, right? Presence, focus, memory, everything goes out of the window, because to the body, if you're in fight or flight, if there's an actual threat to your survival, you don't need any of those higher faculties. So then they're gone. So basically, like going back to the questions, like how do you get rid of that stuff? It's like you reprocess these memories, then the mind generalizes, oh, it's fine, we actually didn't die, and we're no longer stuck there in the past, and this thing that is happening right now is it's not going to kill us. I had to overcome my fear of public speaking. I literally would get, even weeks before I knew I needed to speak, I would get sick. I could not, I had nausea. I could not sleep at night, even though I knew the topic that I was going to deliver. I imagined all the faces looking at me, like in real life. I still felt nervous before going on stage in front of 120 people. But it was manageable. It was so little that actually I could be present. I could like pause. I could look at everyone in the room. All the things that I learned for like 18 months in Toastmasters, all the tools and all the different things that I learned, the strategies and everything, actually I could use them because I was no longer in fight or flight. I could feel sensations in my body that you would call nerves or excitement or whatever, right? But they wouldn't be an obstacle to me excelling in that moment.
One of the terms that I have for that body language where you just kind of freeze, I call it flat cat. And so I have some students who come and they are the most outgoing, amazing, interesting people. And you put them in front of a camera and it's like somebody took a straw and sucked the energy out of them and they slouch down and they just talk like this. And it's like, who's that?
Exactly.
where did the other person go? So I'm curious, why does that happen? If you are someone who really does feel confident, because I hear this all the time from clients,
Hmm.
they come on and they say, it's not that I'm not confident. I do feel confident, but I just don't think I'm as effective. I don't have that presence. So if you
Hmm.
don't feel like confidence is your problem, maybe it's that presence, that being authentic. How do I be more
Hmm.
authentic on camera? How do I really connect with people?
Have you ever experienced, having a conversation with someone and then you're like present, right? Like you're really just getting, but they say something, and then that something that they said trigger a thought in you, and then your mind like started wandering. So like it's almost like a part of your obviously ear, whatever, was still listening, but not really tuning in. And your mind was somewhere else for like, I don't know, a
Mm.
microsecond, and then you realize like, oh my God, let me just come back to a conversation.
All the
You know,
time when I'm with my kids. Don't tell them. No, I'm kidding. But
it
that
happens.
happens to the best of us. Like you're
Exactly.
listening, but you're not really listening. And this is something I also see with clients who go on podcasts and on TV appearances. Like they're so focused on their own message that they don't take the time to listen to the question.
Yes,
And that also
exactly.
sometimes gets them in trouble because then to someone listening or watching, it's like, but that's not what they asked you, right?
That's what happens when like people get into that flat cat you said, right? Like there
Yeah.
is at a certain level, somewhere in their minds, mind chatter happening, or like sensations in the body, or like some fleeting thought of like, what are people going to think about me? I remember so clearly. I was like, why can I be so outgoing, so flowy, so bubbly, so sparkly, and like so like me, right? Like just me in front of all my friends, all my family, like people that I am comfortable with, and the moment I want to go and record a reel or a story, I'm like, like I literally cannot even take like 10% of my personality into that story or that video. It's like,
Yeah.
what the hell? I become literally like, I don't know, like a teacher, like a boring teacher. I couldn't pinpoint if it was a thought, if it was whatever it was. Then what I realized, it was like, sometimes, because we take information through all our senses, just the environment of like, I have the phone in front of me and I know I have to record a video, that was enough trigger. Imagine that you have your best friend in front of you and there's no one else. You're in the living room, and it's just you and your best friend, and that's it. And then that it's almost like, oh, I can imagine her face and whatever it is. Okay, perfect. So let me just try that again, and it just felt more natural.
For different people, that could be different things, right? Like you
Yeah.
hear the sort of old adage, just picture everybody in their underwear. I mean, I don't know if anybody actually does that, but
Yeah.
when it comes to being on camera, though, that's a whole different animal, no pun intended. And one of the things that I hear from clients all the time is it's one thing to speak in front of people, but it's a very unnatural thing to speak to a lens. And a lot of people
Yes.
won't even make that eye contact with the camera itself. And when you have a
Yeah.
smartphone, one of the things I always tell clients is don't look at yourself on the screen. Make sure you look at the camera itself. And that's a
Yeah.
very confronting thing to do. So, what is it about the camera that almost reinforces and makes these mindset issues even more amplified?
One thing that happens, when you're in front of people is that you are checking people's reactions. You are reading the room, you are interacting. So then what happens is that a lot of people get used to having that immediate feedback, and obviously, as I was saying, the subconscious mind is recording everything. So you may start kind of like seeing people's faces and whatever it is and like just adjusting and like maybe cracking a joke or like getting, like it becomes interactive. When you have the camera, it's literally you and yourself and the camera. And it feels so unnatural, like you say. It's like
And you have
I
no way of
still
knowing how it's being received, right?
exactly, you have no clue how it's gonna be received. So even for me, I tell you, it's like when I am recording videos, I still don't look at the lens. I'm like, I'm just because here's the thing, when I am speaking with people, like with friends, I am not necessarily just looking at them intensely. If I am like retrieving something, if I am thinking about something, I'm just gonna behave in that same way that I would be with a friend, and that's what works for me. Obviously, that's what like feels natural to me.
One thing that I always say is that those social rules that apply in real life situations also apply to the camera. So while you wouldn't look at someone's chest while you're talking to them, right, which is the equivalent
Yeah,
of looking at the screen, you would make eye contact with them, but you also wouldn't lock eye contact with them and never look away. And I mean, that's also a little bit like, and you also wouldn't sit too close to them, right? Because
yeah,
there's that physical space. And so all of the same rules apply. But I love what you said
got
about
it.
not having that feedback. And is that, do
Yeah.
you think, one of the reasons that people struggle to be authentic on camera? Because you're connecting with a device and
Yeah.
you're not seeing the people on the other side. How do you bridge that authenticity when you're facing a camera and not a group of people that you can read?
I had a lot of trouble with like switching from stories to recording more scripted, like with a topic and like with a hook and this and that and whatever, all this like structure, right? In a reel where I really want to be sure that I deliver this powerful message. I was like, it felt so clunky. And then what
Mm.
I noticed from going from one to the other is that it was a matter of me getting over basically just doing it and doing it and doing it until it felt more natural. And also
Mm.
that worked because I had already worked through all my mindset and emotions and like all that stuff. So at that point, for me, it was just a matter of like, let's just become familiar with this. Let's just give those data points to my mind so it knows that this is just something that we do now. I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm literally just gonna do it, and they're gonna suck, and I'm gonna give myself permission to do them again, and not
Do it
nail them and
messy.
ramble. Exactly, messy. Do it
Yeah.
messy, and then in that process, I was like, oh, okay, I feel more comfortable now, and I feel more comfortable. Oh, and now it's flowing better. And just the thing of doing it over and over and over became like made it easier.
And one thing I do want to mention is that it's not like you get to a point where you're confident and then that's it and you're just always confident. I remember as a
Oh yeah, no,
reporter, I went through a phase where I had a bout of very bad anxiety as a television journalist. And I remember so vividly, I would go on in the morning to do these live, we called them live hits, and it would be with, different stations all across the country. So I would have like 7 or 8 live interviews, one after the other, with a few minutes in between. And I remember one morning specifically, they came to me and I don't know what came over me. And I'd been on TV for years. I mean, I was not nervous on camera, but I suddenly froze and the anxiety took over. And I don't know where that came from. And it lasted for a couple of weeks and then it just went away. So, another
Mhm.
thing I want to drive home is that it's not like this is something you just overcome and you're done and it's never going to happen again. This is an exercise you may have to revisit from time to time.
Yep, 100%. And especially for entrepreneurs, I mean, since we like both work with entrepreneurs, like we experience the fear and all this like anxiety or whatever when we are starting, but then we don't think, oh, like once everything is going and I'm already like good at this, it's like I'm not gonna feel this. And it's like exactly what you're saying. It's like it can happen again because of different reasons. So I have
Mhm.
clients that then come back because they grew their followings, they grew the amount of clients that they're serving, and that's freaking them out
The
because they
new
feel like
level of
there's
imposter syndrome, right?
yeah, or like of fear of
Yeah.
messing it up in front of more people or not being
Mm.
able to deliver what their promise because it's so much more people than what they were expecting. And
Hmm.
I remember when like I don't know 200 people speaking in front of 200 people felt like puking, and I'm fine with it. But if you put me in front of like 1,000 people, I'm gonna have to do an exercise prior to rewire and like kind of like regulate my nervous system to be fine with speaking in front of 1,000 people,
With more
and then
people, yeah. It's like
exactly.
getting to that next level with more visibility comes more risk of messing it all up, of losing it
Exactly.
all, of
Exactly.
being on a big stage when something happens. Um, and that can be incredibly uh,
Vulnerable.
intimidating, even for the most seasoned public speaker, right? Hmm.
Exactly. It's like, what do I have to offer to these people? It's like they are like so ahead of me and blah, blah, blah. Like
Yeah.
all the mind chatter and whatever emotions I was getting in my head.
You keep using the word clear. For people who are
Yeah.
not familiar with this process, what does that mean? What is clearing something? What happens? How do you do that?
Okay, so imagine that you're in front of a camera and you feel that like that moment of like, oh my God, like you feel almost blocked from just
Hmm.
truly appearing as yourself, truly just freely talking. So imagine if that thing that you're feeling that is like stopping you was not there at all. It just dissolves, it melts away. It's just,
Hmm.
you cannot feel it, you cannot access it. You can just be there, be present, and like roll with it and just talk freely.
That's
That's what I
clearing.
mean by clear. Yeah.
So, one other thing I really wanted to dive into here is the idea of social media. I mean, we all know that social media cuts both ways. It can be a great tool, but it can also be really detrimental for mental health, particularly when it
Hmm.
comes to comparison, when it comes to you post something, you don't get any likes, then you get into your head about how you suck, or, people don't like me, or all the stories that we tell ourselves. So I'm hoping you can offer some advice on how to handle those situations where you get really discouraged because everybody says you got to be consistent on social media, you got to keep showing up, you've got to embody your brand, but like how do you muster that when you're really just not feeling it, or when you're in a bit of a funk where you're just not feeling like your content is resonating, but you have to keep showing up?
I made showing up on social media my win instead of thinking that my win needed to be getting the likes, getting the engagement, getting the comments back. My win was I'm going to show up in social media because I am one post away from my next client that I'm going to rock their world. You know, I am going to show up on social media because every single post and every single time I create content, I am mastering the art of being a better communicator, a better public speaker, a more concise communicator. And if you really think about it, social media is giving you the perfect platform. But I personally want to be a powerful, inspirational speaker. And in the beginning you won't get all the stages and like all these speaking opportunities because you need to master your
Mhm.
message, you need to master how you deliver things, your gestures, all these different things. And how you master that is with practice. So to me, how I see social media is like it's my perfect platform for practicing, delivering a powerful message that shifts people's thinking, or awareness or perspective in the most concise form. And that is so hard. It's like,
But the
yeah,
nice thing about social media is you can do it again and you can do it again and you can do it again. If you
exactly,
get a media
exactly.
opportunity, you get one shot. That's it. Whereas your social
Yeah,
media channels are, a constant, basically a sandbox for you to try different
yeah,
things and
and
see what
play.
resonates. And what I see is people getting so fixated on vanity metrics that they lose
Yes,
sight of the big picture. And what we end up with is a sea of entrepreneurs following the same advice to show up in the same way and use the same formula and say the same things on social media. And what we're losing in the process is the authenticity and the message that these entrepreneurs have because they're so scared to veer outside of this advice on how you have to show up on these platforms, that they've almost
excellent.
diluted what they do and the impact they can have because all they want to do is get the maximum number of views. So I
100%.
think
And
that's the
then
most
also,
tragic thing about this advice.
yeah, and then also I will say that a lot of time the vanity metrics don't really reflect on like sales. Like a lot of people
Mm.
could go to my page and say like, oh, this girl's barely getting any engagement, whatever it is, and I'm getting clients. So that's our thing that
Yeah,
I tell
me
people. It's like,
too.
don't don't underestimate the amount of lurkers that you have, that won't ever engage with you. I literally,
Yeah.
so many of the people that have come to my discovery calls, to like get coaching, I've never seen them engage with my content.
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
that most people that have come to my discovery calls I have never seen them actually engage with my content,
Yeah, yeah.
and they're
And then
lurking,
and then
right?
they tell you, they're like, "Oh, I loved that reel where you did this," or "I loved when you said this." And you're like, "Someone was watching?" But
Exactly.
even if you get like all it takes is maybe you got like 200 views, but if 3 of those people become clients, that's way better than getting, a million people looking at your reel that's 4 seconds and went viral because it used just the right track. But like, does
Yeah.
it move the needle forward in your business, right?
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, exactly what you're saying is like I feel like in order to show up consistently on social media, you have to also work from the end.
Mm.
Imagine if you already had, not I won't say millions of people because that can be also threatening to your system. It's like my million people that are like, like watching. It's like that can also be like, oh my gosh, right? So
Hmm.
there's a reason why everything like growth is progressive because you also have to give a chance to your mind, to your mastery, to your skills, to all these different things to catch up, right? If right now everybody just suddenly got 100 clients, that could be a little crazy for your nervous system.
Yeah, they
So
can't keep up. Well,
exactly,
and
and
steady growth is the name of the game. It's also when
it's
you're
good.
setting out to be visible and suddenly you get all these opportunities and it's like, okay, the stage is yours rather than doing that slow building of your brand in a methodical way that really help you stay laser focused on your goal, which is ultimately more sales, more clients, getting more visible so more people can discover you and ultimately work with you, right?
It's like every little thing that you do is planting a seed. That's our way I like seeing social media. It's like a lot of people think that it's like, oh, it's like because I didn't have X amount of likes, then it's a waste. It's a waste. Everything's a waste, apparently. Like it's like, oh, I don't
Hmm.
want to waste my time because it seems like nobody's engaging with this and nobody's seeing it. It's like it's never a waste. I
Mm.
remember I had this like epiphany, in I was like surfing. I had this moment of like from one year to the other realizing, wow, it's like I have progressed so much. I got stronger and this and that. And I had this massive epiphany. It's like nothing ever goes to waste. The
Hmm.
workouts that I did during the year, the exercise, the like improving my cardio, like the paddling that I did so much for like from the shore all the way to the waves over and over and over. Nothing went to waste. And then I was
Every
like,
video, every
exactly,
story, every live, every time you
everything,
hit record, you are
every
taking
time.
a step.
Everything is success. Literally, it's like
Yeah.
every caption, every like hook, every time you're like thinking about this, like you're becoming better at all those things, at recording the videos, at delivering a better message, at communicating and speaking, at like being better at copywriting and messaging, at connecting with your people and being more natural. Everything is adding up. And also people need time sometimes to convert, so like that consistency that you were talking about is important because I think it was before it was something like 7 touch points for someone to go from totally cold to converting. Now it's like 21. So if
Yeah.
you're not being as consistent and you're just getting in your head and like not putting the content out there, then what happens is that you're not giving the chance for people to actually go through that experience from learning about you to like really trusting you, knowing you, and wanting to buy from you, right? So
Exactly.
and it doesn't have to be perfect. That's our thing that you were saying. Like it's like this is your playbox, right? Have fun with it, play with it. You can repeat. Actually, that's our thing. A lot of people think that in business, social media needs to be like entertainment. It's like no, actually, in business, social media needs to be repetitive in the
Hmm.
same like the same point that you're making it in a bunch of different ways, but it's the same point. It's repetitive. You feel like, oh, I have already said this 100 times. Yes, and you have to say it one more time for the people in the back because they didn't, because of the algorithm or whatever, they didn't hear it.
Yeah, there
So
was a quote that I remember, and I don't remember who it was attributed to, but you're gonna get sick of your message way before your audience hears it.
100%. Seriously, I cannot. Yeah,
Not my line,
100%.
not my line, but I live by that line because it's true that repetition is
It's
important.
true.
But so is authenticity. And in 2024, when we're recording this episode, so is imperfection. In fact, I
Hmm.
think people who are too polished and try to be too perfect,
Yeah,
that's out of style. People don't want that anymore. People want to connect with real people.
yeah,
So that's definitely something else to keep in mind. Deanna,
a
Sofia,
hundred
this has been
percent.
so amazing. Is there one piece of advice that you want to leave people with that will
Oh
just
my
really
gosh.
give them some actionable advice that they can take and put in place right now, today?
There, I always tell people there's two things that change our subconscious mind. One is obviously going through the hypnosis, whatever, like a session with someone like me or another subconscious reprogramming and nervous system regulation coach. But the other thing is just doing the dang thing. Literally. And there's two ways that people can do the thing. One is in the real world, like every single, just like we were saying, it's always planting seeds and nothing goes to waste. Every little thing counts. So just thinking about every little step that you're taking, every minute that you're spending on the recording of the video, the planning of the script, everything, nothing goes to waste. So it's success, giving data points to the brain that are gonna make this at some point feel so much easier for you. So just know that it's gonna feel hard as you're climbing that like road, right, to mastery. And then at some point, it's gonna feel easier and easier and easier and easier and easier, and it's gonna take less time. But just know that there's a bump, So if it feels hard, don't back up. It's like lean in. And then the second thing that will help this process and that anyone can do, is taking 5 minutes a day, 5 to 10 minutes a day to visualize yourself, delivering. Like, imagine if you can just rehearse in your mind, you're probably not going to be able to record 100 videos in a week or like in a day or like, in the beginning, but you can 100% go into your imagination and imagine yourself looking at the camera and doing an incredible job. And then
Mm,
what that's doing is like basically is lighting up the same like neural patterns, neural connections in your brain that will make that in real life like natural. So
mm,
then people can rehearse in front of the camera, but they can also rehearse in their minds. They can close their eyes and for 5 minutes just imagine the camera and the thing that makes them feel uncomfortable and literally just like going at it. It's like I am delivering the most natural, authentic, powerful message. And I feel so good and so confident, and people are loving it in the other side. Even if there's no likes, no whatever, it's just reaching that one person, that this message is for and it's meant to change their lives. And just feel the gratitude of that moment, and whatever other emotions you want. If you can take 5 minutes a day to rehearse this in your mind, the reality will catch up with it as well. So, yeah.
we could keep talking all day. Deanna, Sofia,
I
thank
think
you so much for your time. I'd love to have you back and we can dive more into some of this stuff.
it would be my absolute pleasure.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to Camera Confident. Help us grow by subscribing, liking, and sharing this podcast. And be sure to follow me on LinkedIn at Shirlee Engel and on Instagram at b.camera.confident. See you next time.